of hard as nails earwax, and this particular case was somewhat difficult. It needed to be done today. There was no way that I was going to send this patient away for a week or 2 weeks of olive oil and to come back. The reason is this patient is a serving police officer, and the ear that I'm working on at the moment is his radio ear. So he wears an earpiece, obviously, and the case history is not particularly complex. It's just, his hearing has been feeling a bit muffled, his ear has been feeling a bit full, it's been getting worse and worse and worse. And then eventually it just hit critical mass where whatever tiny gap was left for sound to get through to reach the eardrum, that closed, and he became very hard of hearing in that ear and was unable to hear through his earpiece. So he's come to see me. This is the situation here. Again, not necessarily ordinary earwax here. We do have the classic sort of earwax dead skin hair matrix, which is extremely resistant to suction, very, very hard to deal with. And you can see here I'm going in with suction and a little bit of olive oil. Really what I'm doing here is just sort of probing the situation, just teasing the wax and just seeing how easy it will be. A little bit more olive oil in here. And you'll see that mostly I'm going in at the edges. I'm testing the periphery and dragging it into the centre and just moving around to see if there's any kind of movement there whatsoever. So this is just sort of the initial stage of investigation, I suppose. Ultimately, the thing that will save the day is a quarter hook, which you'll see in a moment and you've seen on other videos as well. But it is just a very, very, very tiny metal hook. So there it is. This is a number 6. Going in on the side here. The lovely thing about this tool, and I'm sure I've mentioned it in the videos, but it is small enough to kind of not press into the side, but encourage it in between the canal and the wax, just so you can get some purchase and then you can start tearing bits away. Whereas with the St. Bart's, it's just too large to do that. So what I'm doing here is just disturbing the wax plug, disrupting it. And the idea here is that I'll move back and forth in between the hook and the suction. And whenever I've created a little bit of a mess with the hook, I'll go in again with the suction, clear everything away, and we'll do this in stages until I can kind of get to a stage where I can get the hook in deep enough where I can drag the plug out in one piece, essentially. So there's a little bit of movement here now that I've disturbed the plug. And you may be thinking as well, if the hook is so good and you're able to slide it in on the side without hurting the patient, why don't you just slide it all the way? That would be somewhat dangerous because I'm not sure where the eardrum is, or I don't know how shallow the ear canal is. So typically an ear canal will be anything from 25 to 30 centimetres long. It varies hugely, but sometimes they can come really shallow, sometimes they can come really long. And what you definitely don't want to do is just kind of shove the hook in blindly and just keep on shoving it because you might hit the eardrum. And whilst that probably wouldn't be, an instant perforation or anything like that, it certainly would be a disaster, particularly if you shove the hook in and then the tip of the hook got embedded somewhere, and then you can't yank it out, and the patient finds that painful, and then you have a hook stuck in there, which would be a complete disaster. So I only tend to shove the hook in maybe a few millimetres, just enough to get me purchase on the debris that I can see. So we never go in blind. Back in with the suction again, just teasing the wax plug here. And some of you may be wondering, how could this have happened? Was it his earpiece? I don't think so. The earpiece that he wears, which is connected to a radio, goes over the ear. So he's not necessarily inserting anything inside the ear. But how has this happened? Well, it's difficult to say. He didn't report any cotton bud usage, which is the first thing that I suspected. But he did admit sort of shoving his finger in his ear from time to time. That could have been the case. In terms of how this has happened, a really good video to watch actually is the 5 reasons not to clean your ear video, which I did earlier, and I'll link it down in the description box below. But essentially there are many different reasons why you might get this hard earwax plug. The primary reason that people get it is because it's been the wax has been smushed backwards and compacted. The other reason is it's dry, so you have sebaceous glands in your ear canal, just like you have sebaceous glands on your scalp, for example, which secrete this kind of oily, fatty substance. And if those are underactive, or you've shoved the wax deep down in the ear and you've pushed the wax away from those glands, and they're only in the first third of the ear canal, then the wax will dry out and get hard and crusty. That may have been what's happened here. And you can tell that the wax, it's probably been pushed down because of the colour of it. So obviously there's some nice yellow, orange insert, but a lot of the degree is actually very, very dark, almost black, and that's a sign that it's old. So I'd rather suspect that at some point he's jabbed something in his ear, that's pushed the wax down, it's compacted, and then the debris behind the wax knocked it out, and it's just sort of built and built and built, and then so we've got a little bit more disturbance in the under and the suction at this point is, although you look at I've cranked it up to about -5 sigma, there's just a little bit. I would love to actually get it up, I just know that if I go in and close the doors, it's just swish on the face of the wax. So we're going to have to play a little bit more with the suction. But there is some movement there. Ear canal, probably in the established stage, ear canal picked out, as you can imagine. The ear canal will be very small. So I'm just moving back and forth to see if I can hold it out further. And I'm going to have to go back and again with the foot. It's at this point now that I'm confident that I can actually get some work with this. One I would say improvement to this work would be to make the face of the right angle, the face that's closest to the hands, to make that flat. So again, I've got way more leverage now than I had before. Now you can see the plug starting to one. And that's when I know, okay, nothing is looking at the stars now. I can get it. I'm just going to grab hold of the this, and there we have it. And you can see the amount of hair that's coming out of it, which again is another reason which would make the plug very, very difficult and hard and